Doxxed, the podcast.
Would you touch my body? Would you come up and grab one of my breasts? Seriously, same to Jubilee. Would one of you just come up and take my breast out of my shirt and fondle it?
I'm actually super excited about this episode. Once again, it's going to be a dark one, but Scorpio vibes. It's dark all the time and I love it.
We're in the deep dark, but again, we're going through. We're almost to the other side, I think.
Yeah.
And
I think we're definitely almost to the other side.
Yeah. And yeah, trigger warning, because there's going to be talk of SA and rape and other very violent things in this conversation, but it's important. It's a relevant theme to what's going on. And also it is dark, but I'm relieved because the Erie police told Allie to stop harassing Carrie Ann and her family. I feel like a big reason that we kept talking about this after we dropped our initial episodes was because Allie had escalated to a point where people were in danger of being seriously harmed in real life. Like calling universities and businesses, leaving bad reviews really sucks of a person and is defamatory. But things like gang stalking and lying to the police about what Jubilee is doing when Jubilee is simply making content, and whatever Allie is saying to the police is apparently grounds for a CPS call. I would call that lying to the police. That kind of thing puts people in imminent danger in a different way, I think. But I think frankly, we defanged her. Defanged. That's a weird word. If Allie wants to rant all day and night in her own Instagram about how Doxxed is dead forever, she can do that. She looks like a mess at this point, and the only people that back her are just embarrassingly ignorant. And yeah, so frankly, we took her away from her largest platforms, and the police have now also told her to not contact the people she's been harassing. So I feel like as long as she listens to the police and stops and doesn't escalate by going after some other person in a similar way, which if she does, we're going to absolutely keep calling the police about that. Are you kidding? Of course we would. So don't do that. And if she just wants to go on her own page and talk about whatever, we're finally, I think that's a fine place to just move on. And obviously Doxxed, the podcast, is going to continue. We're going to keep talking about broader issues around doxing and cybercrime, because it seems to me like everything going on right now is related to this. And there's more and more stories every day of people getting doxed, big deal people getting doxed and huge things going down with the laws. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Doxxed is dead every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah. Super, definitely flatlined here. We do have a few more episodes of tying up loose ends, I think. We still want to talk about definitely white supremacy and how that played into all this. But, in the Doxxed, the podcast is dead kind of language coming from Allie, because she said it several times now. Doxxed is dead. Doxxed is flatline. No more ever again. I think that's Allie projection language.
She's been saying it since launch week.
That's true. She was saying we were down off of different platforms. We were not, except for TikTok is just, I think we're both kind of tired of TikTok in terms of trying to advertise this there. It's just not, it's not worth it. It feels like, but anyway.
Honestly, we haven't needed it. TikTok has not been a benefit to us at all, really.
No, and we have plenty of an audience. YouTube is doing well. And so are other platforms. But anyway, I think what that language is her just realizing that her tantrum is not working and that she wants to be done. And good, let's all move on, because I feel like we're in a, as long as she's not going to continue to escalate and continue to try to extort people, etc., fine, let's move on. That's fine with us. But I think for this episode, we want to address some of the disturbing language that Allie has been increasingly using in the last few weeks, especially, where she continually likens what is happening to murder and rape. And
ooh, should we play that clip of her being absolutely disgusting?
Yes, we can. Let's play some Proud Echidna clips. This is a new
We stand Proud Echidna.
It sprang up kind of recently. It's been doing highlight reels and compilations so that you don't have to watch 5 hours of Allie content to understand, to find the specific things she's saying that actually are relevant. So yeah, we could pull that up. Hold on. Let me find it.
Protect proud echidna at all costs.
All right, let's see. There's actually 2 of these clips about the violent fantasies. Which one should we do both, or should we just do one?
Definitely both. Yeah.
Okay. They're both relevant. Okay. Hold on.
There's a little bird's nest right above my bedroom window, so now my room is super tweety.
Now we both share the tweetiness. Yeah, there's like a vine on a wall. You can see it in some of my TikToks. I sit out on my roof behind my house, and there's like a condo next to me that like is taller and further back than my house. So there's like this vine that grows on it, and there's several bird nests in the vine. And so sometimes it's like a nice kind of naturey bird sounds, and sometimes it's like aggressive levels of tweeting. And you've mentioned this several times when we were on the phone.
Yeah, whenever we're on the phone and you're like on a walk or something, like, God, you sound like a Disney princess right now.
It's just surrounding me at all times. It is. Okay, here's the first one, which is kind of, I think, a more general one.
Allie's behavior is disgusting, and putting her in a psych ward as opposed to a prison would be merciful at this point. She's been projecting her own fantasies of raping and murdering others onto this situation, and every time she says, I would never do that, she soon escalates to doing it. But to say that I have fantasies of raping and murdering people, like, you just buried yourself. Not that you already hadn't, but you just absolutely fucking buried yourself. And you guys tried to kill and silence one person. You're gonna crawl through that fucking window and stab me in the middle of the night. You are going to come into my house in the middle of the night and stab me. I'm like actually leaving the internet partly because I'm scared that these people are going to kill me.
She's a psychopath that hurts people for sport, Brian.
I hate Carrie Ann with every fiber of my being. They fucked me sideways, dude. They're still fucking me sideways. And I'm not gonna be blamed if something happens to Jubilee. I'm not gonna be blamed. Get bent, bitch! You wanted this! You wanted this, Carrie Ann.
The most loving thing for me to do is to give you some.
Carrie Ann, you wanted this. This is what I can't get over. Carrie Ann wants this. Wanted it. Like, fuck.
They're hexing me right now, y'all. That felt like it was a spiritual jab from somewhere.
But you're gonna lose something over this, Carrie Ann. This makes you a fucking monster. You are the worst, most vile, most disgusting woman. You're a monster, Carrie Ann. You're a broken little girl who is causing a lot of bloodshed. You're a fucking monster. And if you're willing to actually treat another woman like that, Carrie Ann, like, you can get absolutely fucked, bitch. Get bent, bitch. And it's dangerous to expose narcissists like this because they want you dead, but fuck you, Carrie Ann. Your kids are in actual danger. I tell you, you're hurting me. Would you touch my body? Would you come up and grab one of my breasts? Seriously. Same to Jubilee. Would one of you just come up and take my breast out of my shirt and fondle it? Would you walk up and just stick your fucking hands down my pants? And you wanted this. You don't care if I die. The way I would love to put my hand through the screen right now. And I said, when I say fuck you, I mean it. And she goes, get help, Allie. You absolute swine. I said, it breaks my heart that people like you people like you exist. Fucking bitch. We were on the phone. I was so mad at her. That's called reactive abuse. I might smash in my car door windows before I go to Best Buy. Not mine. No, mine are does anybody know where Carrie Ann? But damn, if anybody wants to handle this all old school style and go to Lansing, Michigan with me, I've thought about it. I've thought about a lot of things that I would never do because I'm a good citizen. Carrie Ann wants me. You guys can put your life, your freedom, your businesses, everything at risk, which you already have. This can turn into an absolute bloodbath if that's what you guys want. I'm scared Jubilee's just gonna fall over dead. I'm very scared for Jubilee. Get fucked, Jubilee. Like, seriously. I mean, you can sit there and do that all summer if you want, Jubilee. You are going to, like, it's not going to. I don't want something to happen to her. Don't you want to be known, Barry Boo? When should we have our first business meeting? She is a broken, trembling little girl who has to have control over everyone. You guys gutted my life open, ripped it apart. You don't want the same done to you? I get impulsive sometimes. Yeah. Have I also had the absolute shit beat out of me? And that's also like reactive abuse. You poured out my guts. You laid them out on the table. So get bent, bitches.
All right. It's so much. That's literally just 4 minutes and it feels like a million years.
That was only 4 minutes.
That was
Jesus.
4 minutes long. And yeah, that was like a compilation of just general, like a few different lives, I guess. But
The second one is like infinitely worse. The little pantomiming part, like definitely
pantomiming part
that.
is horrifying to watch her. And she all acts like the thing she read at the beginning of that last clip was a comment I made, and she's all like, Doxxed is canceled forever because you said that. Well, I said it because I'm observing what you're doing. She trigger warninged it, but she didn't trigger warning when she said that Jubilee was raping her reputation and then pantomimed in like doing an impression of Jubilee raping her. This is very disturbing. Very disturbing.
It's
And it
so
is
disgusting.
and it's not because of Jubilee is making content. That is not equivalent. I mean, it's just so much to unpack. It's just horrible. And then the other thing was she was so mad because she was like, well, I had trauma as a child. So that is very sad. And I would never wish that on anybody. But it does not absolve you of your choices as an adult. And I was saying earlier, pedophiles are often victims of sexual violence as children themselves. It does not excuse them from the consequences of hurting other people. And also, statistically, without speaking for anyone in particular, she is almost definitely not the only one involved in this who experienced something like that as a child. So when she really very literally likens people to making content about her to rape, she does not have any idea about the histories of those people that she is saying that about. It is just the utmost hypocrisy. Shall we sit through this second one now?
Yeah.
I control you guys. And saying that I would murder people, like, get the fuck out of here. When is this gonna be enough? Would you like to come to my house and kick the living shit out of me? And if you guys kill me, there are so many, you're gonna end up in prison. For real. At this point, I think Carrie Ann's blind rage is at that point. I think Carrie Ann would literally kill me. It's scary. I'm scared for my life. And that's exactly why also the police are investigating this. It's scary as fuck to me. You guys have put me in the worst position. I'm not threatening you, Carrie Ann. You need to give me my shit back. You need to make the right choice. This isn't just internet drama, you fucking swine. And I have no empathy for you anymore. You seriously want me to have empathy for you or not do the same thing back? What? That's what you wanted. You wanted to break someone or kill someone. What are you gonna do? Kill me, bitch? You guys are all pissed because your little plan to fucking kill someone didn't fucking really pan out, did it? This is Carrie Ann's wet dream. You guys are setting me up for a complete narcissistic abuse cycle, and you're setting me up to blame me for the rest of my life for something happening to Jubilee. I want to say very clearly that I don't want anything to happen to Jubilee. This is so scary. I don't have a choice. And when I get quiet on the internet, shit's going to get really crazy because I'm going to be 10 times more effective and focused. And you lost the moment that you gave your life over to me and the moment that you decided to like seriously hurt someone for sport. You're a loser for that. You're a loser for lying. You're a loser for thinking you're above the law. What a narcissistic thing to do. That is what narcissists do. They drive recklessly. They believe they're above the law. They do grandiose things. They don't think that anybody else exists except for them. But at some point it's going to happen, whether you guys are mature enough to decide to put it down or it's put down for you. You guys are going to rue the day. Is that the saying? You guys are going to rue the day. What are you doing, Jubilee? Are you trying to threaten me at this point? Are you acting like you're like, it's like she's like, yeah. That's the scariest part of this. All of you, you don't care. Your blind hate towards me is more important than anything in your life, which makes me feel like even more, you are a scary person. You don't care what happens to you, and I need to make a full-blown fucking report. Are you going to come to my house and touch my body? Would you come up and grab my body and touch my body part? Like, my life isn't yours, Jubilee. And you all are headed for a really weird, I don't know what's going to happen, but you're not going to do this to me forever. You're not going to do this to the people that support me forever. And at some point, you're going to be stopped. You put people in terrible positions. Fuck you, Jubilee. And they're going to say, oh, Allie's so horrible for saying that. No, I'm just the fucking truth. And you've put me in this position. Wake the fuck up. You're going to get someone killed. You want me dead. You have bullied me to a fucking pulp. You have lied to everyone. You are a sadistic bitch. And if you don't know it, if you can't see your own lies, you need to be fucking locked up. You are going to cause someone to kill themselves. And the second I get into Canada, you are fucked. Not physically. I'm saying, like, you are fucked. And I will make sure of that. Legally speaking. I will fucking ruin both of you. And you created a situation where I had to talk about you, you psycho cunt. Fucking rot, bitches.
We're gonna have to cut some of that down because it's just, honestly, I lit a candle before we started because I was like, I want to keep it loving. And so I got a pink candle out and it's going, and we need some love energy because that is so hard to sit through. And even here, it's so violent and aggressive. And it's a
For her to say, how dare you say I have violent fantasies, and then she proceeds to very colorfully describe her violent fantasies in the next second.
Well, she says multiple times that we all hate her, which nobody says. No, none of us say. No, none of us really. We're not hateful people. She says that we hate her, and then she also says, I hate Carrie Ann with every fiber of my being. That's projection. None of us, that's not an energy coming from us.
Like the whole spiel she did about coming into her house, beating up both her parents, kicking her cats, stealing her food. Like, what? That was so ridiculous.
And like, she constantly references penetration. Like saying Jubilee's gonna stab her, saying that thing about like a spiritual jab, and she makes this like jabbing motion with her hand, violent, aggressive motions. She has like a weird relationship with her own masculine energy. She cosplays men who abuse their authority all the time, and it's not a joke. You could almost pass it off as a joke, I guess, except for in addition to dressing up like a cop all the time and trying to police an entire corner of TikTok, she was excited to report that the cops liked her, which I think they were probably being polite and probably, it sounds like her dad is a good old boy. So we'll talk about that in the white supremacy episode. But in the meantime, she was so excited that the cops liked her, like the most pick me of all. That's a weird desire.
After months of dragging me through the mud because I said I had never been arrested, and somehow that turned into me being anti-Black or whatever the fuck.
She said she said you love the police state.
Yeah, she said I was the establishment and I was the police state and that I love the police and all that bullshit. And that was terrible and awful. But also now she's besties with the police and like, that's cool.
She's so happy that the police liked her. So, yeah, there's a weird like desire to either be or be picked by men who abuse their authority.
Any man at all.
And try to dominate. There's this weird compulsion for domination that is not ours. Allie needs to wear that. That is not something she can transfer onto us through projection. This language is disgusting. It was inappropriate. Ugh.
And it was horribly triggering.
Yeah. And the hypocrisy of her trigger warninging the comment that I made, but literally the pantomime.
And the look in her eye when she's doing it, it's so
dark eyes. And she's done it before. I remember that she's done it before, but it was more in the context of like dancing to the music. She's also done a lot of the finger guns. She's continued to do that. And like, sure,
Mhm.
you're doing a finger gun dance and it doesn't mean a real gun. Still weirdly aggressive and violent. Weird to even think about that a lot.
And then people in her comments just cheering her on, gassing her up while she does this. Like, y'all are fucking disgusting.
Yeah. Well, the people that are behind her are people where if you poke them for like 4 or 5 seconds, if you look into them, you realize that they're like a Trump supporter or they're a hardcore Christian or they're just people that are the exact thing that she goes off against, the exact people the exact kind of traits she makes fun of in us.
Yeah, like they're
In
either
her
a love and light
comments.
girly or
Yeah.
a crystal girly.
Selling tarot things or selling crystals, or
Racist girly.
they're like a blonde hardcore Christian. Yeah, or they're super racist.
Mhm.
That's who's left over there. I mean, really.
Well, after I saw those 2 clips on YouTube, which there was just no fucking way I was watching her actual content. I don't consume her content directly because why? Why would I give her a view?
It's
Um,
so exhausting. She was going off at Jubilee for doing multiple hour lives. Jubilee does like 2 hours max a day. She did like 7 hours of lives on June 2nd or whatever that one day was. Like
plus
7 hours.
Instagram. Plus Instagram.
Oh my God, I didn't even like look at the you can't even like and I did feel after I looked at some of that content, I did start to feel a shift in my own feeling about the whole thing because it's just like I can't even it's pointless and it's saying nothing. Like there was that one video where she was saying she had all these receipts. The only receipt was a video where I was having fun making a TikTok video and she's like, "See, does that look like someone who's abused?" Meanwhile, she's calling Carrie Ann's mother crying about how she almost killed herself and does Carrie Ann's mother care? And then she's playing that phone call back and laughing her ass off.
Mhm.
Why are you laughing as you yourself describe how you almost killed yourself in a crying voice? Very disturbing, very disjointed.
Very
Very, like,
histrionic. And I've said it a bunch of times and I'll say it again. There was never a suicide attempt that made it to Instagram. Like, I feel like someone tried to spin that into drama to manipulate everyone else in the situation. I feel like Allie in that video, the infamous video, bathtub video, was just out of her mind on whatever substance she was on at the time, speculation, allegedly, supposedly, covering my ass. And when she heard people were worried about her, suddenly it was a suicide attempt. Suddenly it was I was going to take my own life. How dare you guys talk about me? She's an opportunist, she's histrionic, and she's a fucking demon. And all this talk about rape and get fucked, get bent, all this talk about like touching her body, that was so fucking triggering to see. And I know she's an idiot and she doesn't really take herself that seriously when she's talking like that. She's trying to appeal to people's emotions and trying to be like a shock jock, I guess. But it was horribly triggering to me. And I know I'm not the only woman in this situation, in any situation, really. I feel like it's what 1 out of 3 women have been sexually assaulted or raped at some point in their life. I think I saw a study where um, a group of women were asked when was the first time you were sexualized, and almost all of them said some age under the age of 11. So I'm not trying to be super precious about it. I know I'm not the only one, but it was incredibly triggering to me to see that.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's very it's an effort to engage people emotionally, but they're ultimately really shallow emotions on her part, apparently, based on how she reacts to her own, recorded phone calls and things like that. It's very disturbing to see the disjointedness. And I really can't speak to like what happened to her that night, but all I know is that it's extremely hypocritical to say anything negative about the idea that we called a wellness check while in the same breath saying I almost killed myself. Then I guess that was really good that we called for a wellness check. I'm happy that we did that.
And y'all aren't the only ones that called. Her own friends called too.
Yeah,
But they're
so,
not getting any heat. They're not getting any heat for
Yeah.
sending that welfare check to her. Only the people she doesn't like who gave a shit about her are getting all that heat.
Yeah. I'm also disturbed that she's even aware of who called the wellness check, because I don't know whether that was a failing of the police or somebody just made a good guess based on the context, but that's information that she shouldn't have known either way. The point is, she herself said that she was in trouble that night. So who cares who called? If you're okay, good, great. That was the idea.
Yeah, I feel like there is something really toxically masculine about Allie in, like you say, how she has this unquenchable thirst to dominate everyone around her.
Mhm.
And I think that definitely feeds into this like toxic masculinity culture and rape culture. Not saying that what she's doing is akin to rape, like she's trying to say about us. Like, I don't want to conflate the two things. But it is a part of that whole patriarchal, toxic masculinity, rape culture thing. And all of that directly, negatively impacts specifically autistic women. And as someone who likes to cosplay as an autist, you would think that she would be very aware of how that kind of culture directly impacts autistic women.
Yeah, and to be more sensitive to the idea that all of us are pretty much most of us or all of us are autistic in this situation. It's like it's so hypocritical. But I mean, I think you were kind of educating, because I didn't even realize that was statistically the case. It makes sense that
When I first made my TikTok, my podcast TikTok, my unhinged and dysregulated one,
Mhm.
one of the first pieces of content that I made on there, I think it was like maybe the third or fourth TikTok that I made, and it went like kind of viral. And it was me talking about those studies about how 9 out of 10 autistic women have been raped or sexually assaulted in some way. And this is like not long after I got diagnosed myself. And I was in that kind of dark phase of late diagnosis when you start to reprocess all of your trauma. You start to look back at every confusing situation that's ever happened in your life where you couldn't make sense of it. You didn't know why it happened. You didn't know why no one liked you. You didn't know why you're so misunderstood. And it's like, oh, autism, autism, autism. Like that phase can last a really long time for people that are late diagnosed autistic.
Still in that
But yeah, one of the deep dark rabbit holes I went down was sexual assault and rape. And for me, I don't want to get too long-winded about this, but for me, my whole life, I don't want to say struggled, but have been really confused about my own sexuality, my attraction to certain people. It's all been very confusing and complicated for me. And I used to just attribute it to toxic purity culture and growing up in that. Now I know better. I know it was that plus being high masking autistic. And it really fucked me up growing up. It really did. Not understanding how the world really viewed me as a woman, how not really understanding what I was supposed to be in this society and just like masking my way through absolutely everything. And growing up in the church, you're kind of taught, especially like in evangelical Christianity. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, which is also very culty and very strict. You're taught that as a woman, your body is wrong, it's sinful, it causes men to do sinful things. You have to control how a man views you by how you choose to move through the world. And if you cause a man to do something sinful to you, it is your fault. If you cause a man to feel any kind of lust towards you, it is your fault. So you have to mitigate the thoughts of every man around you in the church. And if you fail at that, you're some kind of like horrible Jezebel. So I grew up believing that about myself, believing that the shape of my body was sinful and that was something I couldn't control. I'm a big chested girl. I've been that since I was about 8 years old. Puberty hit me. I didn't hit puberty. Puberty hit the shit out of me. I've always been curvy and I've always had to manage my body around men and boys in the church. And I always believed that that was my responsibility. That was my burden to carry. And if I was sexualized in any way, I felt a lot of guilt about that because I believed that it was my fault. So then, as an older teen, leaving the church, but not really shedding that toxic purity culture shit that I carried around, I kind of struggled with my own sexuality and like understanding how I even felt about sex, how I even felt about like sexual chemistry in relationships with men or women, or even like going down the road of like exploring that at all, even though I had those feelings. Um, this is like so hard to talk about. These are things I just don't say out loud because it's like so confusing to me still at 36. It's so confusing to me still. So leaving the church and not having those things drilled into my brain all the time, but also not deconstructing any of it because I didn't even know deconstruction was a thing. I felt like I had to mask in this whole other way around men in like the secular world and having so much more freedom and not being in this like rigid religious like structured kind of thing all the time. How do I explain this? It's not like I went through this like wild phase or anything, but it felt wild because I had no structure. I had no one really telling me what to do when it came to my body and where to go and who to hang out with and how to dress and how long to stay out and who to talk to. I didn't have that anymore because I walked away from the church. And when you grow up in a church like that and that like really toxic purity culture, you're not taught consent. You're not taught about bodily autonomy. You're taught that men are everything. Men are your provider, your protector. You compete with every woman around you to get a man because your goal in life is to get a man and you're nothing unless you have a man. I didn't deconstruct any of that when I left the church. And when you don't know about consent, when you don't know about bodily autonomy, and also when you're autistic and you don't really understand social cues and you're prone to just masking to get through social situations, I feel like you also mask in sexual situations too. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I think that's like, it's a thing. If you're masking to survive in every situation, like chances are until you deconstruct a lot of things, until you understand that you're autistic, if you are, like it makes sense that you're going to mask in your romantic relationships, you're going to mask in sexual situations.
Yeah.
At least that was true for me.
Absolutely.
And so I didn't sleep around a ton as like an older teen, early 20s, because it was sinful and bad. And I didn't quite understand how it was all supposed to work and how I was supposed to feel. I just knew that sex was for marriage. And if a guy likes you and wants to have sex with you, then he probably wants to marry you. He probably really likes you if he wants to have sex with you. He probably really gives a shit about you. Like, absolutely not. Learn that the hard way. So with having Matt, I think I lost my virginity when I was like 19 or 20, which is it's considered kind of late-ish, I guess. 19 or 20.
I don't know.
It felt late for me because all my friends were fucking in high school and I was not. I was absolutely not. But from that first experience, that was my first boyfriend, and he flirted with me for a couple weeks, asked me to be his girlfriend. the next day, I lost my virginity to him. And then the following weekend, he broke up with me and had a new girlfriend. So that was absolutely traumatizing for me.
Yeah.
Like devastating for me because I'm like, I did this thing that I'm not supposed to do because this person is not my husband. So that's like already scarlet letter on my forehead. And then now he's just gone. And now he has a whole other girlfriend and he's just gone now. And I gave this part of myself away that I was supposed to save for the person that was supposed to be with me for the rest of my life. And I fucked that up. Like I beat myself up so bad for that. And then I just saw myself as just like trash. I'm just garbage. I'm just used up. I'm a whore now. After having sex one time with one guy, I was like, I'm such a whore. No one's ever going to marry me. So I carried that around for like a decade. Like that guilt stuck with me for like a decade. But even in that first experience with this boy I thought I was so in love with, I was masking through that because I didn't know how to be. I had no deep sense of self. I had toxic purity culture and autism, which I didn't know. I was just not being myself in any situation. I was masking through it all. And one thing that I've been learning recently, like reprocessing a lot of trauma, figuring out my sexual identity and what I even like and what I'm even attracted to. I masked my way through my first several, if not all, of my sexual experiences. And one thing I didn't realize I was doing until recently is that not only do I mask during sex, I dissociate during sex almost every single time with every partner. And I don't have any like deep sexual childhood trauma. Like I think I've been pretty lucky with that. I think it's just like, I don't think it's a childhood sexual trauma thing as much as it's just like an autism trauma thing and like a church trauma thing.
And like a patriarchy trauma thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely it definitely has to do, I'm sure, with compet, like compulsory heterosexuality, and just the idea
Mhm.
that there isn't another choice. That's being an
Yeah.
idiot.
It feels like, I feel like when I was younger, when it came to men, I felt like obligated to have sex because my worth was wrapped up in it. Because when you grow up in the church, you're taught that everything, your worth as a woman is wrapped up in your physical body and how desirable you are to the most like righteous man, basically. And yeah, my worth as a woman was just like wrapped up in all the wrong places. And so I was never taught, like you're not taught to enjoy sex. You're not even hardly taught what sex is when you grow up in the church. You're just taught to be this like virginal, virtuous picture of innocence until your wedding night, and then you're supposed to flip a switch and be the exact opposite behind closed doors, you know, with your husband. And I think what's been really difficult for me to process is I've never really experienced being present during sex because I leave my body. And I think I leave my body because I still carry toxic purity culture shame during sex. The way cishet men, how do I explain this? In the dating scene, like I'll go on the apps, I'll swipe, I'll match, I'll talk to someone, I'll meet them for a date. I know what they want. They make it very neurotypically clear what they want with all their like unspoken bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get that feeling of like they want to have sex with me, it makes me feel gross. But then I feel obligated to do it. At least that's how it was for me in my early 20s. Like I have to be with some man. I have to get married. I have to be a wife and have kids. And this person is interested in me. I'm just going to white knuckle my way through it. And hopefully they'll want to like date me kind of thing. I feel like that was a good chunk of my early 20s. which is so gross to say out loud, but I know I'm not the only one.
No, not at all the only one. It's a huge amount of social pressure because it's all about being objectified and treated like an object. And so then your worth does just become like there's no inherent worth for you as a subject anymore. Or that's what everything external is telling you. And that's also what everything external is telling the man you're on a date with.
Yeah.
And that can result in like aggression because then they feel entitled often to, and even when they don't think that they do, like the whole like nice guy issue, the whole like friend zoning issue,
Mhm.
all of that is men thinking that they inherently are something or inherently deserve something. And really just it's all about not seeing you as a real person.
Mhm.
And just
I
sort
didn't
of
even see myself as a real person for a long
well,
time.
exactly, you're trained not to. It's a totally unrealistic expectation what they set you up for in a marriage, and there's a reason that people liken it to it's like, you know, women are like enslaved by their husbands under the patriarchy in a sense.
Mhm. And you're we're kind of socialized in the church to not see sex as something pleasurable. Like it's not supposed to be something a woman is supposed to enjoy, I guess, because that's sinful. And so in my sexual experiences, dissociating, masking, faking it a lot, I thought that was normal to not necessarily enjoy it. So when I would talk to my girlfriends about how great sex was for them and like how in love they are with their boyfriends and how amazing it is and like they orgasm at the same time and it's so great. I'm like, what? Wait, you actually do that? Like it just seemed so foreign to me to actually enjoy it.
Are you tired of feeling unsafe online? Do you want to learn how to protect yourself from cyberbullying, doxing, and other forms of online harassment? Then look no further than Doxxed the Podcast. Visit the website doxedthepodcast.com to sign up for the Doxxed free ebook full of helpful tips and resources for online safety. Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive the weekly newsletter with the latest updates on upcoming content. There are many ways to connect with Doxxed, including Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Discord. Have a story to share or feedback to give? Use the contact form on the site to reach out or leave a voice message to be featured on the show. And for exclusive content, subscribe to the Doxxed Supercast to gain access to the private podcast feed with member-only exclusives. Take control of your online safety and join the Doxxed community today.
When I had so many experiences that I didn't even remember, not because I was drunk, not because I was on anything, but because I left my body and I was just not present during. So then that brings me to me kind of coming to this stage in like my mid 20s when I started to let go of toxic purity culture. I still wasn't deconstructing anything, but just allowing myself to just be more sexually free and be more selective and put myself out there a little bit more and go after the men I felt like I was actually attracted to, which was still questionable. I still don't know what I'm fucking attracted to all these years later. But then I would go for these guys that I like actually desired. And like that's a whole other thing. When you're the one that goes for the guy, that creates this whole other weird, icky fucking dynamic. And my repeated experience in that phase of my life was me taking the first step towards someone I was attracted to, them being like flattered by it or kind of taken aback by it. And just kind of milking the situation for what they could get and then also kind of dipping out afterwards, which was also traumatizing in its own way because I felt like in some way I was taking a little bit of my power back by being the one to make the first move, take the first step, be a little more assertive. It felt like I was in control a little bit more of my desires and my feelings, what I wanted, what my goals were, but it still hurt in the end because I still couldn't figure men out. I don't know. I feel like at that time, I was taking my power back a little bit more, but the outcome that I had in the back of my mind was still wrapped up in like this toxic purity culture bullshit. Like if I do A plus B, then I'll get the guy. No, I won't. It's still a no. I didn't understand the game. I didn't understand the whole dating game. I thought, well, if I like you and you like me, then we'll just be a thing. And that rarely was the case.
I still don't understand the dating game. I don't get it. I've mostly dated people that I suspect were / are autistic. And so I think my experience was a little bit different, but I think that's just because I was really only able to get into relationships with other autistic people for the most part, because I so did not understand that game and didn't play it. And so anybody that was like, anybody that couldn't deal with me just being like annoyingly smarter than them, or like, you know, like they were not having it. And plus I was not like, if we're all objects, I had low value in that sense, because I was just not, I don't know, I was very separated from my sensuality. I was just a ball of nerves, and I was not I was very overweight, and I was not like I don't mean that I was not attractive because I was overweight. It's part of what the whole way that I carried myself was just like I had no confidence, I had no self-love. And so, yeah, the people that were going to date me were not people that were like able to, and I was just not like mentally well either. I was really struggling with like very serious depression for a long time. So I couldn't go into a relationship and pretend to be like a Barbie doll for somebody. I couldn't go in and even mask, because again, I just kind of wore it on myself. So the people I ended up in relationships with were people that were not objectifying me, I think, for the most part. And that's interesting in itself. But yeah, but I don't know, but I also don't, I feel like I've had to do a lot of deconstruction. I also was kind of late to realize that I was queer, and that also had to do with autism, I think, because I didn't understand, I thought in black and white so much and didn't really understand what attraction could be beyond a set definition, or what sex could be, or what a relationship could look like. There was zero representation of queer relationships, so I was like, that didn't even cross my mind in a way. And then later I was like, oh, that's like a whole option. Oh.
I, around men in like most of my adulthood, I was absolutely not myself. Like, you talk about how you were pretty much unmasked dating, or dating other autistic people, or felt like maybe
I
you
don't
were
know if
being
we were
perceived as like
necessarily,
much smarter than them. And I was the exact opposite. I did not show myself to men on any deep level. And like they don't really care. They don't really ask the kind of men that were attracted to me. Like I led with sensuality because I felt like that's all I was worth. I didn't have deep conversations with men. If I tried to, they didn't listen to me anyway. And it seemed to kind of lower my value with them if I showed that I had a brain or passions or interests about anything. So I just never showed any of that. Like, of course it wouldn't last. Of course they eventually move on, because not only did they not know me, they didn't have to. It wasn't a requirement for them to know me.
yeah, I wouldn't say that I was necessarily fully unmasked with everybody I dated, even, and like that we weren't necessarily unmasked with each other, which is kind of interesting too, like two autistic people playing at an allistic relationship in some cases. But I definitely did, like, one of my biggest, I think, requirements for dating somebody long term was always that we would have to be able to, like, they would have to be constantly engaging to me on an intellectual level. I could not stand to spend all my time with somebody if we were not like talking about deep things all the time. And so that was what I led with that. And frankly, if we're having some serious talk about sexual histories, I led with sex because I had a deep fear of being rejected by somebody after falling in love with them because I waited to show them my body. And I had a deep fear of them seeing my body for the first time after I had felt safe with them and them rejecting me because of my body. So what I would do is I would put out on the first date, pretty much, even if it had nothing to do with whether I even liked the guy. And this was also like a little later I honestly don't remember when I lost my virginity. It might've been around 1920. And it was basically just a first pass. Can we even hang? Can I even begin to care about you? Let's just get this out of the way. And unfortunately, that would confuse people and I didn't know, I didn't get it. Like, I didn't understand the social rules. So I would just like do that and then be like, well, that was decent and you didn't totally reject me. And so now let's get into like a relationship or something. And then I would actually care. But then sometimes it would be like people, like guys will always react with this weird, like, as if they're the center of your universe. So they'll suddenly get all weird, like, oh, you care about me too much. No, I promise I don't. It really was not about that. Or just, people react differently, but it was almost like me gatekeeping myself intellectually instead of sexually, like the other way around. And I did not really value myself very much. And I wasn't like, sleeping all over. It was just sort of like how I would go about my dates. I think I would like shock people sometimes because I'd be like, yeah, why not? Let's go back to your place. And they'd be like, seriously? Yeah, why the hell not? Like, unrelated to whether I even like you at all, like, honestly. And I don't know why. I really was like, I think I didn't get that about myself at the time, but it was really out of a very deep fear that if I got to know somebody and then they might reject me based on how I looked. And then that was so upsetting to even think about, that I was just like, let me just avoid that completely by doing it this way. So I got into the relationships I got into. And I think part of that too was like, autistically, I'm just like, here we are at the end of the date. Would you like to sleep together? And then people are just like, like the people that will operate on that level are more often autistic people, because they're like, yes, let's just openly communicate our what we want to do here. Like, I'm not playing some game. And I think that was like scary to some men, and that was like annoying, or that was like, but it just got me. I was like breaking the matrix by accident there, I think, just because I was like, I didn't even understand what the game was whatsoever. I was very bad at that game. So I was just like, you want to go sleep together? I don't know. Like, I guess I would. Okay. And then if they're like, yeah, I guess I would too, then you're like, okay, cool. And it turns out we were all autistic. So there you
Wow.
allegedly. I don't know that like all these people were diagnosed autistic by any means, but that's my sense. Yeah.
One thing I can say about my early 20s experience with sex is like I never really someone not being sexually attracted to me. Like if they were interested in me, I understood it was because they wanted to have sex with me. That's what I'm trying to say. Not that I was like so hot, but if a guy was showing any kind of interest, I knew it was sexual interest. So that wasn't, I didn't worry about being sexually rejected. I worried about being intellectually rejected. Like, I didn't really gatekeep my body either, because I knew that I felt like that was like, I had to have sex with them if I was going to hold their interest at all. So that's something I did pretty early on too when I would meet a guy. But showing them who I am and sharing my thoughts or opinions, that's something I definitely was worried that I'd be rejected for. So I didn't share that part of myself hardly at all. And no one was curious about that either. So it worked out that I never had to that I never got around to like emotional intimacy with a man ever. But there's so much rejection in other ways and so much heartbreak in other ways. Never sexual rejection, always emotional rejection, intellectual rejection. Like, no one wanted to know who I was. No one wanted to build anything with me. They kind of just wanted to have sex with me. And I didn't make that part difficult for them at all. And I stayed being confused about that like nearly my entire 20s. Like, I think I fell into like the whole limerence thing for a while. And
What does limerence mean? Can you explain that?
it's like a obsessive crush. Like the feelings you develop for someone that aren't necessarily deep, but kind of obsessive, like a really intense crush. And it's something you develop for someone that is just out of reach, that you know deep down you'll never have what you want with them. And it kind of fucks with your head. They become like a special interest of yours.
Yeah.
And they're pretty much all you can think about all day, all night. And you know you're never going to have the happily ever after with them.
Yeah. I've definitely had that experience with at least one person.
Yeah, I've had that a lot. So experiencing like heartbreak after heartbreak, like in my mid 20s, I started to gatekeep my heart a little bit more. I stopped sleeping around. I stopped dating as much, but I was still going out with friends and stuff and still interacting with men. So that's when I started to experience men pursuing me, because I wasn't just like out there making it known that I was interested in anyone. So I started to experience pursuit in a different way. I started to experience the quote unquote nice guy a little bit more often, where they make you believe that they're so different, that they're not like every other guy just looking to get in your pants and dip out the next day, that they're deep and emotionally intelligent and emotionally available, and like, oh, you're so different. You're so on my level. Like, we're so compatible. And they'll build this whole relationship dream. They'll paint this whole relationship picture and then sleep with you and then disappear. And that happened so many times, enough times where it was a whole other different kind of trauma to have someone to be, how do I say this? To express to someone, hey, I'm not looking to hook up. I'm not interested in a relationship at all. I'm kind of working on myself. I'm trying to heal from some shit. I'm trying to grow through this phase of my life. Like, I'm really focused on working on me. So thanks, but no thanks. And then they pursue you and make you feel safe with them. And then they learn about your trauma. And then they pretend to be something that they're not, just to fuck you a couple times and then disappear. And I didn't understand that when someone tricks you into doing something you wouldn't do otherwise, that is a form of rape, because it's not actual consent.
Yeah, when it's under false pretenses.
Yeah. When it's deceptive or even coercive. And like, I'm not trying to say every guy I've ever had sex with has raped me. Like, I'm not at all saying that. But it's a thing. And it's a widely accepted thing that's like on the outskirts of rape culture, I think, that men can go into a situation with a woman knowing what her intentions are and knowing that their intentions are completely different, and play the part to get what they want and then pull away from that person and not have to deal with any of the emotional repercussions, any of the trauma that woman experiences. And that's something that the nice guy does. And I wrote about this a little bit in my book, Neurodivergent Women and Narcissistic Men and like the modern dating scene. And I share a little bit of my story of this in the introduction. and how in the modern dating scene, it can be so hard to differentiate between the bad guys and the good guys once you're in the bedroom. It's really hard to tell the difference because the bad guys are like more overt about what they want from you and how they're going to get it. But the nice guy will make you feel safe until they get what they want.
Yeah.
And does that make him a terrible, horrible rapist liar? No. Is it illegal to lie to a woman and make her feel safe and make her feel like you actually give a shit about her just for the purpose of having sex with her? And she's probably one of a dozen that you're doing that with. Is that illegal? No. But it can be really hard to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys when they're all kind of doing the same shit.
Well, yeah, and it's about
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
It's about objectifying and objectivizing you and dominating you. And the reason that I know this is because I have experienced that kind of nice guy behavior, but only since I lost weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's gross.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that people used to not pursue me when I weighed more. People did not, I guess I was not in a culture that saw me as beautiful in any way. And that's very sad because I think if I had understood to carry myself differently and that I was not just taking up too much space constantly, the issue was not I was ugly and I was fat. The issue was I was in a culture that was really not, that was just looking at me as having no value. And so everybody I ever dated, I pursued them. And a few of those guys dated me, stopped dating me, and then we like decided to date later. But it was like, I really feel like that I was kind of like a not first choice of people. It was just kind of like, well, this guy, I guess this works for the situation. Nobody was ever like, I need to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. And that's how I know that it was all about objectifying me and kind of the role I could play, because I couldn't play a fantasy role for them. And I think just culture celebrating different kinds of bodies can fix a lot of that. And not like, it doesn't fix it to just suddenly fetishize fat bodies also. But I mean, it's just so telling about how much it is about objectifying you, turning you into a sex object.
And fetishizing you. And I think that's something where we can both really relate because women, just fat bodies are fetishized and black bodies are fetishized.
Mm-hmm.
And being that back burner person while they look for what they really want, that sucks. It sucks to be on the back burner and be sexually used whenever they're tuckered out looking for what they really want. They know they can call you and then you'll do the thing and you'll give them what they want. And once they're satisfied, you go back on the back burner while they pursue who and what they really want. And that's usually how it goes when you're the object of someone's fetish. And I feel like BIPOC people, specifically BIPOC women and people that identify as women and people in larger bodies can relate when it comes to being fetishized.
Yeah.
Like anyone that's on the margins of the European beauty standard or just not even at all the European beauty standard were fetishized.
That's what it is. That's what I'm trying to describe as a European beauty standard, as opposed to an objective beauty standard being the cause of why I was experiencing that. I want to also like just give a shout out to, and I hope that like us shouting out or mentioning people is not like a negative for them. But KD Art Gallery is my friend. That's the Instagram handle. And she makes art that is some of my favorite art right now. And it's like these kind of pastel color palette, sketches, or I think they're like digital drawings of bodies. And I can't really describe it in words. It's just they're very like soft and all different kinds of bodies, and like these angles that are, it's just like people just sort of freely being like, okay, here I am. And they're very like soft and absolutely beautiful. Everyone that poses in any of those sketches, you're just like, wow. But it's like, I think the reason that that is so striking to me right now is because, and like, so I was at Pride, Philly Pride on last weekend, I think it was. Yeah, it was like a week ago. And there's a lot of obviously great queer artists there. And there's like tents kind of going down a bunch of different streets that you can walk down, and you can get stickers and you can get paintings and prints and, you know, whatever, all different kind of stuff. And a lot of it I was noticing was body positive. So there were a lot of different kinds of people represented, but also a lot of it is like, oh, it's like stickers of beautiful fat women in fetish gear or something. And there's a beautiful space for that. That's really cool. But my friend's art, KD Art Gallery, is like not fetishizing bodies. It's just like this beautiful sensual experience of like, I keep saying sensual, like it just like moves me past that barrier of whatever is societally accepted. And it's just like, look at this. This is just like people, and people are so beautiful. And so I'm just so into those like representations right now, because it's like refreshing, because there is so much of, even in body positive art, there's so much fetishization. And I guess any kind of commercialization of anything, which is what you're doing if you're a public facing artist, is going to be some kind of fetish. Because fetishizing, a fetish is when you take something that is only a part of the whole thing and you objectify it. So like a foot fetish is when you're kind of thinking of the foot in isolation to the rest of the body. The whole gestalt of the thing or the person becomes irrelevant because the foot is an object that has now got sexual properties. So that's what fetishization is. And I think commercialization is basically fetishization, because it's all like, we have to brand ourselves. We have to take part of ourselves and put it in and turn it into an object to be consumed. And so I think that's a kind of fetishization as well. So that is a public facing art too, I guess, but it's refreshing. Yeah.
And constantly feel like you're being consumed. And I think I got burnt out feeling like I was just being consumed and not loved or appreciated, or feeling like anyone had any kind of curiosity about me or any desire to just know me at all. I just always felt like I was just kind of being consumed and then thrown away, or like even passed around. I had one horrible experience. I think I was like 23 or 24, and I had kind of become friends with this like friend group of, I'm using the word friend really loosely. It was just like kind of party people, bar hoppers, party goers. They weren't like actual friends. When you wanted something to do on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, you would just text one of them and there'd be some party to go to, kind of thing. And one night I went to one of their house parties, and one of the guys there was flirting with me really hard. He was cute enough. And I think we just made out or something like that. Not in front of anyone. I think we were like in a bathroom or something and made out for a little bit. And then I went home. And then I think the next couple days, there's another house party at the same place. And one of his roommates was flirting with me really hard. Didn't realize he had a girlfriend, which I found out about that the following morning. That was a party I definitely stayed the night because I drank. And I made out with him, again, it wasn't like we didn't go super far. We just made out. I didn't sleep with him or anything like that. But everyone was too drunk to go home. So we all ended up just like staying the night in the living room. And then his girlfriend showed up in the morning with breakfast tacos for him. And I'm like, oh, we made out for like 3 hours. Interesting. That sucked. So the following weekend, same house, same party. And the guy that owned the house was roommates with the 2 other guys.
Okay.
There's the 3 of them. So the 2 guys I had made out with the week before, and then the guy that owns the house. The next time I went to that house party, he was all over me the entire night. Like, I feel like, I more than feel like, I know that these 2 roommate friend guys had talked about me to him, and I don't know all what they said because I didn't sleep with these guys. We just made out, but I think they kind of went to him and told him about me, told him maybe I was like an easy target or I was easy or something like that. So at this third party, the owner of the house, that guy, he was all over me all night. If I went to the bathroom, he was right behind me. I had to push him out of the bathroom so I could actually use the bathroom because I wasn't going in there to like make out with anyone. I just wanted to fucking pee. He'd follow me all around the house. If I went outside to talk on my phone, he was right behind me. If I was making myself a drink, he was right behind me, putting his hands all over my hips, touching me all over. And I kept moving away from him, and he kept just following me everywhere. And it kind of made me freeze up. At that time, I still didn't really, I wasn't confident in my voice. I wasn't very outspoken then, and I didn't want to be rude. I was always taught in this whole toxic pretty culture bullshit, you don't upset a man, you don't embarrass a man, you don't tell a man no because it's going to bruise his ego and it's disrespectful. So I just kind of like politely would move away from him or like move his hand off of me, or and he's doing this in front of all these people, and like no one seems to be clocking that I am so uncomfortable. I'm feeling so unsafe, and I'm so bothered. No one clocked that, and I couldn't speak up for myself in that moment. And so the end of the night is near. I am so sober at this point. I was too uncomfortable to drink too much, but my ride was super drunk and passed out. This is before Lyft and Uber were a thing. This house is in the middle of fucking nowhere, so there's no like walking or taking the bus anywhere. And I didn't drive my own car, so I ended up having to stay the night there. If I was any closer to the city, I would have just tried to walk to my apartment, but I was literally 20 miles away from home. There was no way. So everyone's super wasted. People were doing drugs, like passed the fuck out. I'm sober and like, oh, what am I going to do? I want to not be here because this man is all over me. And everyone's passed out except for me and him, of course. And he grabs me by the wrist, pulls me into his bedroom, slams the door behind him, pushes me up against the door, and no amount of saying no stopped him at all.
That's horrible.
And I was scared that if I actually like fought him off of me, that it would be worse. There's that fear of like when someone tries to violate you by force, you kind of go into survival mode and like, okay, do I fight and get real like hit or punched, or do I just let it happen and hopefully it won't be as bad? So that happened repeatedly the entire night until the morning. He would not let me sleep. If I tried to get out of the bed, he would pull me back in the bed. I couldn't even go to the bathroom to pee. Held me hostage in his room the entire night. And then in the morning, acted like I didn't even exist, which was fine. I didn't need anything from him in the morning, but completely discarded me in the morning. And like didn't make eye contact with me. It was completely done. And I was in shock. in shock, exhausted, in pain, so upset. And my friend, who was my roommate at the time, I wake her up and I pull her in the bathroom and I tell her what happened. And she gets mad at me and is like, "That's so unfair, Roxy. He didn't hurt you. Come on. You guys were all over each other all night. I remember."
God.
And I'm like, "You remember him being all over me all night and me running away from him all night?" She's like, "Well, didn't you make out with his roommates? Come on, Roxy. It's not fair. Come on. You're going to ruin this for everybody. He's the only one of us that owns a house and he lets us stay here all the time, buys all the, oh, come on, Roxy."
That's horrible.
And just knowing that I had this like cute makeout moment with this one guy and this other guy, and that turned into, "Oh yeah, Roxy will fuck you. Yeah, just go for her. She's easy." I know that must have been what the conversation was. And that ended up in me being absolutely tortured for like 8 hours straight, trapped in this bedroom with this fucking monster, with my roommate on the other side of the door, passed the fuck out. And then when I go to her to tell her what happened, she doesn't even believe me. She's mad at me. Mad at me. Because I was seen as like some kind of whore. And how dare I be selective and like not be okay with him fucking me. Like that was kind of the vibe that I got from her. So I didn't report it to the police. I didn't do anything about it. She told other people that were at the house that night, like she was really pissed at me.
What the
And
hell kind of a friend is this?
no, not a friend. She told other people that were at the party, so everyone kind of hated me and said I was making up a rape story to try to get their friend in trouble. And she moved out like a couple weeks later after that, which is for the best. We didn't like fight about it. She had the response she had to me, and I just kind of like I didn't fight her on. I didn't even know that had never happened to me before. And I had in my mind, while I didn't fight him, I let it happen, so maybe it wasn't rape. I said no, but I didn't say no enough. And, I didn't punch him. I didn't shove him. I didn't scream. So was it really rape? Maybe she has the right to be mad at me. Maybe I am just being dramatic. And like, it took a while to realize that like, no, that was actually rape and I was tortured for 8 hours straight. And I didn't understand that her response to me was actually absolutely heinous. And the fact that I like rationalized it in my mind that I was in the wrong, and like rationalized in my mind that there's some kind of fine line when it comes to rape. Like, no, there is no fine line when it comes to rape. When you say no and that person doesn't listen and keeps going, that is rape. Or even if you agree to it and stop in the middle and they don't stop, or if you say no in the middle of the act and they don't stop, that's still rape.
Mm-hmm.
But I had convinced myself that like I was in the wrong somehow. So that was one of a couple experiences I've had with rape by force. But I feel like a lot of experiences before and a lot after were deceptive or coercive. And it took until, God, I want to say like right around the time where I got diagnosed with autism, where I was wondering, am I just asexual? I don't enjoy sex with anyone. I dissociate during, I don't experience orgasm during sex. And I thought maybe I'm asexual. Maybe I don't even, I don't know, maybe I just don't want that at all. And then I thought, well, no, because I enjoy self-pleasure, so maybe I'm autosexual, because I still experience those urges, but I'm totally fine when it's just me. But sex with other people, sex with men or women, I'm not there. I'm just not there. So then I thought maybe I'm demisexual because I love emotional intimacy so much, and I experience sexual attraction really intensely when there's a deep mental emotional connection. But then I'm like, I rarely experience that with men, if ever. I don't think I've ever experienced that with men. But I'm attracted to both men and I'm attracted to humans as long as there's like emotional intimacy established. But what I'm learning now is that it's not that I'm asexual, autosexual, demisexual. It's not any of that. I identify as pansexual because I'm attracted to humans. If I like you and you're a human, it's on. Like basically, like genitals don't matter to me as much. But it's the fact that I just don't feel safe with anyone. Like being physically intimate, I don't feel safe enough with anyone to enjoy it. Which is why I leave my body, which is why I'm not present, which is why I don't orgasm, which is why none of the things work and I just mask and fake it, and I'm a Oscar level faker. Oscar level. The amount of men that think they have absolutely rocked my world and they haven't even come close, like, you're welcome. There's your gift, thinking that you rocked my world when I wasn't even there, dude. Wasn't even present for it. So now I'm kind of like coming to terms with what my actual sexual identity is, what I'm actually attracted to, what rape actually is, what feeling safe and unmasked in my body, I haven't really experienced safe, unmasked sex with anyone. I don't know if I ever will, because I don't even know if I want to like dip my toes back in that at all. But I've never felt safe enough with anyone during sex because I've been raped repeatedly by more than one person. And a lot of my sexual experiences outside of relationships have been really coercive or deceptive. And it doesn't help being autistic and not being able to like read between every line and pick up on every neurotypical weird kind of lying roundabout social cue. And I think a lot of autistic women can relate to not being able to pick up on all the like neurotypical nuance around modern dating and sex. Like when a guy says, let's hang out, we don't have to do anything. Like we don't have to have sex, which I've heard a lot throughout my life. Like, first of all, why are you saying that I fucking know we don't have to have sex. What are you talking about? But then you get there and there's supposed to be some kind of unspoken understanding that you're supposed to have sex, even though the whole part of the invite was don't feel any pressure to have sex. And then you get there and they're all over you. Like, I feel like I've heard a lot of stories of autistic women being caught in that trap of thinking that a guy you really like and are friends with and is safe and you can have non-sexual touch and you can have a good time just being in their presence and there's not going to be any sexual pressure, and then you get there and there's all sorts of sexual pressure. And then maybe you don't know how to say no, or maybe you freeze up and can't say no, which trauma plays into that. I posted about sex or rape by coercion and rape by deception on my TikTok before, and there were guys in my comments judging me and judging other women in my comments, are saying, well, if you don't enjoy it, you should be saying no, and that's fucked up. You're leading them on by not saying no, or something fucked up like that. Like they don't understand that sometimes a trauma response is to freeze.
Yeah. There's a huge amount of social pressure. And things can turn really ugly really quickly. And it doesn't have to be that you know the track record of some individual guy. Again, statistically, because it's like a game. And if people lose a game, they'll throw a fit like a toddler. And if they're physically larger than you, or even if they're not,
Mm-hmm.
that can be really scary. And the
Sometimes
threat-
saying no to a guy is life or death.
yeah.
So it's really gross for Allie to say anything that we've done or said is akin to rape, to raping her reputation. Like, it's so gross for her to try to make that weird connection in some way when this is very real and really traumatic. And so many autistic women have stories like mine, worse than mine. And I don't know. It's when you research sexual assault among autistic women, some of the stories are all of the stories are so fucking heartbreaking. And there's so much nuance to it. And some of the discourse around it is so victim blamey and just doesn't understand autistic brains, doesn't understand compet, doesn't understand toxic purity culture and how that can play into things. And toxic purity culture absolutely seeps into just American culture in general. It's patriarchy. It's not just Christianity. Toxic purity culture is patriarchy.
Absolutely.
It's-
And colonization.
Yeah. Toxic purity culture is whiteness. It's so many things outside of just the church.
Yeah.
And to see Allie's YouTube clips of her talking about us violating her and like touching her body, and it made me sick to my stomach because I have all of these experiences and all of this trauma, and a lot of it has to do with me continuing to understand not just my sexuality, but understanding my autism and reprocessing so many traumatic events throughout my life. It was just a slap in the face and really nauseating to see her talk about that.
Yeah. It was sickening. And I was like a little bit in silence there just because of that. Just because of this entire subject matter. It is very difficult to talk about. And I think a lot of times people are encouraged not to talk about it at all rather than to deal with it and the prevalence of it. And so just thank you for sharing that. It's incredibly vulnerable and really brave.
Thank you for listening. Find additional content at doxxedthepodcast.com.